Good afternoon. Good evening. Welcome along. Another edition of Inspire and Be Inspired. My name is Andy Ward, and it is my pleasure to welcome you along. We have our usual weekly motivational conversations with the occasional life hack thrown in for good measure. Today, it's all about the music, this fantastic music industry, this fantastic music business. And my guest, Mr. Harold Heath, is a gentleman who will really be more than familiar, be more than known by many of you for some of his accolades down the years. And yet there may be one or two of you who may not be aware of who he is, but you'll definitely relate to a lot of the stories he's got to tell you. Before I bring him on, let me tell you a little bit about how our paths crossed. I was aware of Harold as a DJ initially, putting out some fantastic music on the Lost My Dog label. He is also a DJ, as I've just said, and our paths crossed on Facebook from some of the incredible articles that he'd written, a really great sense of humour with his writing skills. It led me to reach out to him, and then during the course of our conversations, I actually put a book together myself for the Vocal Booth Weekender, and he was very gracious in offering me some advice on how I could probably tweak things here and there, so much so that I actually included words from Harold in the book, and maybe we'll discuss that a little bit later on. The whole purpose of this conversation is to promote his wonderful book, Long Relationships, Harold Heath, My Incredible Journey from Unknown DJ to Small-Time DJ. And I will bring him on now. He's waiting patiently to say hello to you. Good evening, sir. How are you?
Good evening. I am very well. I'm very pleased to be here. How are you today?
I'm great. I'm a little bit hot in this little greenhouse, but you know, I won't complain too much. In Spain, on the Costa Blanca, yes.
Yeah, so you don't get to moan about, oh, it's a bit too hot, do you? Do you know what I mean? I'm here in Britain in a British summer, so let's not start with that.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
Not go that. What is the weather saying over there at the moment? I don't pay any attention.
It's a bit vague. It's not like we're heading into July. It doesn't feel like it. Do you know what I mean? But that's
okay. So what part of the UK are you in at the moment?
I'm in Brighton, which, if the listeners don't know, it's on the south coast of the UK.
Mm-hmm. Most people will know. Most of our people watching are from the UK, and we do get people coming back. Which will remind me, I've noticed that I've got a screen here that's totally covering my face, which is absolutely brilliant. Comments, Steve Reed. There you go. I've moved that now. Good evening, Steve. Harold, let me just speak very quickly to the people who are watching. We're going to be deep in conversation, as most people know who join us weekly and come back and check out the recording. Please feel free to leave any questions or make any comments on anything that we discuss. Your comments will pop up on the screen, so you'll see them. People watching the recording can see what you've got to say as well. When there is a break in the conversation, I will come and address them. And I also say that to people watching the recording because we do like to make this as interactive as possible. And I do like my guests to know that at least one or two people are watching them. My friend Grant Nelson says, looking pretty today. Now, I don't want to assume he's talking about me. I will address that. I will direct that to you, Harold.
Thank you very much. It's a lovely thing to say.
Great. Okay, so welcome along again. We were talking as we were about to go live, and initially, primarily, all I want to do is heap praise upon you for your fantastic book. I want to unearth your amazing writing skills. Before we do that, we'll get to hear more about you. The whole angle of this chat is about inspiration. It's about positivity. But along the way, we are going to have a little bit of a moan, aren't we? We are going to have a little bit of a gripe about this fantastic music business.
We're going to be realistic, Andy. That's what we're going to be. Do you know what I mean? And real life is made up of the light and the shade, isn't it?
It is. It is indeed. Okay, then, sir. I am hoping that my voice is heard as little as possible The floor is yours. Please tell us all about Harold Heath.
Really? Well, from the very beginning, where do I start? People watch this, right? They don't just listen. I'm going to plug that. Look. This is my book, and it's about me and my story. I can tell you a bit about that, if you like.
Mm-hmm. Well, I want to say about the book. I want to, as much as I am here to promote the book, and I cannot praise it enough, I want to keep as much of the content of the book out of this conversation, because people have to read this book. There's one or two anecdotes I'm sure we'll get to share at some point, but the general content of the book can be covered, I think, in a conversation, right? But tell us about yourself first of all. Tell us about you, when you were born, where you were born. You know, some important things that you feel led you into the music game.
I was born in 1971. It was a very fortuitous year to be born because it meant when I was just about 11, 12, hip-hop and breakdancing came to the UK. So I was just in time for that. And that completely took over my life and defined my life for the next few decades in terms of being an advocate and a part of dance music culture as opposed to rock culture, right? Mm-hmm. So ever since I was 12, I've worn trainers and not shoes. I've worn hoodies and not shirts. Do you know what I mean? I've been... Because, you know, that culture is not just music, is it? It's all encompassing. Particularly hip hop. There was music, there was dancing, rapping, graffiti. And I loved all that, man. So that was the first kind of scene I got into. And like I say, that was quite fortuitous because I just was lucky enough just to be quite old enough. Do you know what I mean? Just starting my teenage years when it came to Britain. And because I was born in 1971, that also meant that when rave and acid house happened in the UK, I was just at the right age as well. So I always thought 1971, particularly fortuitous year to be born in terms of dance music culture, man. And like, you know, lots of people of my generation, it's just kind of defined my life, really. Dance music and club culture, DJing, dance music, all that, man. It's, you know, it's been there for me my entire life. It's been solace for me. It's been something I've worked at professionally and semi-professionally, sometimes successfully, sometimes not. And even today, it's still a huge part of my life. I don't go clubbing very often, I'll be honest with you. You know what I mean? I was 51 just the other day. I still had the occasional little dabble, do you know what I mean? But that culture, the music, the way we talk, the way we interact with each other, the whole thing, man, everything about it, it's still very much a big part of me. Do you know what I mean? That's kind of where this book came from.
Most definitely. Well, Phil Gifford, the infamous Phil Gifford, pops in and says hello. So yeah, most people in my network will completely relate to your opening words there. You know, it was everything that we're all about. You spoke about those formative years, some incredible stories in the book about those formative years as well, and the different... I've read so many books, and this will come back to the conversation we had off air about have I prepared the questions? You know, what research have I done? I like to make it as natural as possible, which may annoy some people. It may seem shambolic, but I like to make it feel as just two blokes in the pub. Unfortunately, neither of us have got alcohol right now.
No, I've got a bottle of water here. I'm quite square. But
so there are some stories. I am correct in recalling the stories in the book of you and your crew and on the streets, right?
Yeah. You were a breakdancer as well, right?
Well, I tried. Yeah. That's why I related so much to your words. You know, it was just like I'd never really taken completely seriously.
Right. Well, no, we all tried our best, didn't we? I mean, but yeah, it was a very big part of my life, man. I did loads of graffiti as well. I didn't really mention that in the book, but I got quite into doing graffiti. I did a few kind of big pieces that weren't very good. You can still see the very, very traces of in my hometown.
Really?
Maybe they put up a blue circle, or maybe not. I don't know. It's not really worth it, is it? But anyway, yeah. So yeah, was there a question there, or am I just talking about hip hop? Yeah, hip hop culture.
No,
really
we were just talking about the general age group of most of the people that we grow up with along the way. Everyone will relate to those times, you know, from 82 to 84, the natural progression, moving from the different scenes, and then eventually that would move on to the rave scene. Yeah.
It's
So
quite a
there was,
familiar course. I think a lot of people took, certainly a lot of people said to me, they were like, well, first half of the book, you were just describing my life kind of thing.
mm-hmm.
So,
That's one of the reasons why this book is essential. You do feel like you're walking side by side with you, you know, with with, what was it called? The vinyl, we called it in Birmingham. The vinyl you put on the floor for the breakdancing.
right, yeah.
Vinyl. Lino, yeah.
Yeah.
So then in this book, you do talk about how you start off on the road to being a DJ and the heights that you achieved and you attained. And one of the things that really stood out for me was you very perfectly talk about the DJ pyramid, and at several occasions through the book you talk about the levels, the tiers of DJs. It's going to be very, very well known by most people, but I love the way that you described it and where you put yourself in that pyramid, you know.
I'm going to get it made into a T-shirt, maybe get some posters made up of it or something. Do you know what I mean? It's my concept that I'll go down. That's what they'll remember me for. Personally invented the concept of the DJ pyramid.
The DJ pyramid and what tier you would attain. So you put yourself down. So at the top. So give me a name of someone at the tippity top. You would say.
I guess if we're talking about the tippity top, we're talking about quite a small number of extraordinarily successful, famous, and influential DJs. So you think of your absolutely biggest names, like that are almost household names. Maybe someone like Carl Cox, Richie Hawtin, someone like that. That kind of level. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. They get to play. I imagine they get to play where they like, pretty much. You know what I mean? They can pick and choose. I imagine the DJ booths that they play in are pretty tasty. Do you know what I mean? The floors probably aren't sticky in their DJ booths, right? And I reckon all the gear probably works. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. So it wouldn't have always been the way. That wouldn't have always been the way for those guys. You know, you roll back to 1988 to 1989. Carl Cox, the three-deck wizard.
That's a whole different world back there, isn't it? Now we're talking about the reality of people who, you know, can start artisanal sake companies as a side project to being a DJ. Do you know what I mean? It's a different world, isn't it? Right? You know, Richie Hawtin.
It's madness.
So again?
No, I'm just saying it's madness to think.
Yeah, so at the top, you've got those kind of very top level kind of people. And obviously, there's only a very few people who can actually attain that level. There's not that many jobs at that level, right? So correspondingly, that's why I kind of thought it was a period, because as you go down, there are more and more DJs, right? But they're less and less successful. It's like a graph as well, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? With success along one way and quantity along the other. I'm not very good at maths, but anyway, do you know what I mean? And yeah, I always saw myself, you know, a couple of tiers up from the bottom in that huge midsection of guys who kind of, you know, gave it a shot, got a few good gigs here and there, did a decent warm-up once, headlined here, do you know what I mean? But never kind of made the big time, man. Do you know what I mean? I've not played many places you'd ever heard of, you know? I certainly never played Space or Fabric or anywhere, do you know what I mean? Anywhere that I can kind of wear with pride. Do you know what I mean? I played a lot of
It's all relative. It's all relative, right?
And that's what we say in the book. I have no complaints, no problems about it. And indeed, writing the book really made me completely reevaluate my whole opinion on being a small-time DJ. Do you know what I mean? I really reevaluated my idea of what success actually was. I say it in the book, do you know what I mean? I spent all those years really scrabbling, trying to get to the top of the pyramid because I thought it was going to be so great there. But I can look back on all the times that I failed and it went wrong and it fell apart. And I just had this marvellous, fantastic, life-defining time. Do you know what I mean? That it was just such fun. And it gave me a lot and it still gives me a lot. Do you know what I mean? So you weigh it up, you look back, do you know what I mean? And you write a book about it and you're like, oh, do you know what? I wasn't successful, yet I was extraordinarily successful, just in a way I didn't quite realise, do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Well, you saying that, we will come back to the book. Tell us, as a writer, because, you know, we can't cover the whole story of the book in this short conversation, but your writing skills are phenomenal. You know, it blew me away. It's people say it's a page turner. It was one of the books that got me back. It revitalized my appetite for reading. I'm very much got into listening to podcasts, watching documentaries and things like that, which is something I would like to touch on a little later on. So tell us how you came to be such a great writer, and some of your journalistic skills and jobs that you've done in recent times.
Well, first of all, it's very kind of you. Thanks very much. What I've done is I write a lot, man. Like I try and write every day, and I try and write a lot every day. And it's like anything. If you do it a lot, you get good at it. Do you know what I mean? So a few years ago, I started writing my own blog. I wrote it as much as I could, and that eventually led to IDJ magazine, who had recently relaunched, offering me a column. They were the first people to pay me for my writing. So, yeah, big shout out to Russ, editor from IDJ magazine, because if it wasn't for him, who knows what would have happened. But yeah, so he gave me a monthly column and just said, write what you want, do you know what I mean? And that was brilliant, because it really kind of focuses you to be really good. And also it's a really good time in terms of, it's a few years ago now, but there was an awful lot of terribleness happening in EDM, and it was still quite fresh, and we were all quite enjoying laughing at people in black T-shirts miming and stuff, do you know what I mean? It was when that had started to happen, and it was still kind of quite funny. Like if I tried to write a column now about black T-shirts and EDM, it would be like, really? Do you know what I mean? It's a bit old, right? A bit done. Mm-hmm. But I was lucky enough in that period when I started writing, there was lots of funny stuff to write about, and I could really rinse people out. Do you know what I mean? So I kind of used to just, like I say, Russ let me write what I want, man. So I would just, rip into the cultural excesses of EDM.
What is that style of writing called? There are a lot, or there were a lot. I'm not sure if there's many of them around now. Where
that kind of thing, I aspire to being satire, but I don't know if it's
satire.
Good enough to be satire. Mm-hmm. It might be that I'm just being a smart ass. You know what I mean? But,
no, it's definitely.
I like to satirise the excesses of the scene, because the scene is wonderful and sublime and ridiculous at the same time. Right? It's both things all the time. One of the reasons I love it. Do you know what I mean? It really appeals to my kind of personality. So I got into doing those columns. That went really well for a while, and then I just started to pitch to other magazines, and it was quite a long journey to get where I am now. Now I don't do anything except write about music. That's my job. I'm lucky enough that I can just about scrape together a living most months. But it's been quite a long time to get here, do you know what I mean? And you have to put in a fuckload of work, man. You got to pitch a lot. You got to take a lot of knockbacks. You just got to keep fucking plugging away, writing all these fucking thousands of words all the time. But like I say, you get good at it. Do you know what I mean? And a few years of doing something every day, you get good at it. So now I'm lucky enough that I'm in a position where I get offered some quite fantastic pieces of work from some outlets that I really respect. I've got little side projects with smaller outlets that I really like, and quite lucky, really. It's very fun, very satisfying job. Completely fulfills my creative urge in the way that record production and DJing used to do. So I'm able to put those behind me now and just put all my energy into this one single thing. I really like being part of the scene still. Do you know what I mean? Even in my own little small corner, just chattering away to myself and whoever reads it. Do you know what I mean? So I write for DJ Mag. I do lots of stuff for them. I've written for Mixmag in the past. I do a lot of stuff for Five magazine in Chicago. They're not very well known, but they're a superb magazine. Really good value. It's like $1 an issue. Couldn't recommend Five Mag enough. I do stuff for Beatport and for Roland and all sorts of people, really. But, it's all dance music, club culture related, DJ related. It's all about that whole kind of world. Sometimes I do serious stuff. Sometimes I still do smart art stuff.
I was about to ask you, do you have to rein yourself in, if that's the right phrase, from your incredible sense of humour sometimes? Do you have to think, actually, no, I need to approach this in a different angle?
Yeah, sometimes it's easy to be a smart ass. Some subjects aren't appropriate for smart assery. And I think also there aren't many places that are interested in my particular brand of semi-whimsical dance music satire. It's a pretty fucking niche thing that I do. Do you know what I mean? There's not a lot of places that are that interested in it, really. I've pitched a fuckload of articles to fucking everywhere you can think about. All these fucking stupid ideas I have all the time, do you know what I mean? I think that's partly eventually why I wrote the book, because I had to get this stuff down and out somewhere. And like I said, there isn't a great market for DJ club culture satire, really. But whatever market there is, I'm still plugging away in my little corner. Like I say, I really love it. It's really brilliant. It's my very, very happy plugging away, working away in dance music as a terribly low-paid freelance writer. It's all right. Do you know what I mean?
Cool. Well, I completely relate to your words from the creativity process myself, being in the music business, still doing that, and then moving into other creative avenues and feeling that I was getting that satisfaction from doing it, satisfaction.
Yeah. It's made a word satisfaction, like it.
You know, I'm sure I typed that the other day and I thought, it's my wife. She keeps saying that stupid word and it's stuck in my head.
Wife. What are you doing? You're going to get to that later.
Well, she's just on her way back. She's on her way back from my beeper, so I will be getting in trouble later. So we talking about myself. I related so much to this book. We have spoken on several occasions. I, on paper, could be seen as someone who's attained a certain level of success.
You're definitely at least a tier or two above me, I think, in the pyramid, definitely.
Well, that's how you would put it across in the book, and it's you know, I did think to myself, maybe I'm probably a tier above, but only because of the few, you know, splinters of success that I've had. But I've been through every single trial and tribulation. I
was going to say, when we had that conversation, you then sent me that fucking brilliant video of you DJing to that huge outdoor event. And you got on, and everyone was just like, "Oh, fuck this," and wandered off. And within 5 minutes, it was just you and like someone and their dog or something. I just thought that's beautiful, man. It's such a wonderful illustration of the ups and downs of this thing, isn't it? Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. It is, and that's why I urge everybody to read this. My friend Steve Reed is with us, Mr. Blackwax. He's read the book and he absolutely loved it. There's one or two anecdotes in there which are, you know, absolutely hysterical. The way that you put it across, and also the way that we can relate to it. The promoters that you've had to deal with, the end of the night, being in an office feeling uncomfortable, the not really wanting to talk to a bouncer in the wrong way scenario, you know, so many there's so many of those situations that we've been in down the years as the, you know, the jobbing DJ, so to speak, and even promoters as well. Promoters will really relate to this, who have tried to do their own thing.
Whoever's in the club after midnight, do you know what I mean? There's a whole crew of people, isn't there? There's not just DJs and promoters. There's a whole crew of people hanging around the club at that time and all night. All those people, that weird, you know, infrastructure of people, hangers-on, all that, man. It's for all of those night people, I think.
Definitely. So I had Matt Annis on with me a few weeks ago, and we were talking about the Join the Future book. There you go. And he urged people to grab the book from Velocity Press. Would you say the same, to go and pick up Long Relationships?
I mean, if anyone's going to buy it, first of all, thank you very much. And yeah, Velocity Press is the place to get it from. Support small publishers; they need your support. You can buy it from Amazon if you want. I've got no beef with that. I'll make a lot less money, so will the publisher. But you know what I mean? People can. I'd rather someone bought it than not bought it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. To be honest, Velocity Press are doing a phenomenal job at the moment. Colin the boss has just run with it, and he's just continually turning out really interesting, really readable dance music books about all little aspects of the history. You know what I mean? It's great, man. I'm very pleased to be on that team, to be honest.
Right. Well, I look forward, and I'm all in, as they say. I'm all in. So I look forward to it. Colin, I spoke to Colin, and I think I will bring him on the stream at some point. I think we'll have a great conversation.
All right. It's not as fun or interesting as me, to be honest. It's quite, you know.
If you say so yourself. Really. Let talking about Colin, talking about media, talking about publications, the current state of press, the current state of the written word with the internet and everything. Do you see things healthy? Do you see that the internet really helps move more books, or does it hinder the progress, and has the world dumbed down, so to speak?
I think you mentioned earlier that you'd kind of stopped reading a few years ago and you had to kind of get back into it. I think we all did that. I don't know anyone sort of our age who didn't. A lot of people used to read books, don't read books anymore, essentially, is what I was going to say. And I think it's quite a hard sell. I think that the internet is so accessible and so fun, and it gives you that little hit all the time. It's very difficult to give that up, sit down and concentrate on a book. Do you know what I mean? I think we've all, dumbed down is not a particularly nice term. I think we've all had our ability to concentrate for a long period of time eroded by the fact that we can, if we want, task switch all day. And task switching is quite fun and exciting. It gives you little hits of dopamine, right? So we all kind of do it. Check a phone, do an email, what's on Twitter, did I get a like on Facebook, all that, and you keep doing it all the time, and that will very naturally erode your ability to concentrate for a long time. And then if you try and sit with a book, certainly I found a few years ago, I had a big pile of books I hadn't read, and I sat down with one. 2 minutes later, I was up in another room. I just couldn't, I'd gone, do you know what I mean? I just wandered off from it without even realising. And I realised that I'd lost the ability to read a book. I thought, this isn't good. And I had to retrain myself. I had to really, it was quite difficult. It's like using muscles that you hadn't used for ages. I felt like I had to build up that skill again. It took a little while to get to a stage where I can now read a book again like a person. And that's a pretty crazy thing to have happened to a large amount of people. Do you know what I mean? I think that there is a particular cognitive skill involved in reading a book that you don't use in reading other stuff. You don't use in reading tweets or even longer articles online. Something about holding all that information in your head every time you go away from the book, and then you come back a couple of days later and then you piece it all together with the next thing you read, and you do that over maybe a course of weeks or even months. It's a certain, feels like a detailed neurological or cognitive process that is really fucking valuable, do you know what I mean, to your critical faculties. And it was almost a bit scary to lose it. And I think it is something that you have to really work at if you've lost it to get back. Do you know what I mean? And now I'm really glad, you can see I'm back reading books again. But like I say, it was a bit of a struggle, really. I wonder what the fuck question I'm answering that I've got onto that. Anyway, books, reading.
It is beautiful. So you're saying you're exercising. You know, you are. You have got to work at it. So anybody that hasn't picked up a book, if you want to get into it, I make no apologies. This is the hardest sell you're going to get for this book, because it will really, really be worth it. You're going to be in tears. You know, there's many of my friends who've read it. They've loved it.
Awesome.
Did you get pushed isn't the right word. Did the whole lockdown thing speed up the process if you actually finally getting the book finished? Or were you, because we had spoken for a while about the book's coming. You sent me little snippets of it, and I was just like, I need more. And then it was May last year it come out. I'm completely wrong.
But I had it finished pretty much, I think, before the start of the first lockdown, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, when was the first lockdown? Was that 21 or 20?
2020.
Yeah, I think I had it pretty much done at the start of the first lockdown. And then we spent a few months doing the cover and getting all the stuff right and getting the PR in place, and then we launched it, kind of thing. So yeah, in answer to your question, lockdown didn't really affect that side of things. It was a bit weird launching it during lockdown. We had to do socially distanced book launch events and stuff. Kind of took away from the vibe a bit, do you know what I mean? But obviously at that time there's no alternative, really.
Did Velocity do a good... Clearly they did. I'll ask the question anyway. It's a daft question. Yeah. Did Velocity do a good job in promoting the book? Did you find it easy to promote the book, or did you feel, as to someone who would very, quite willingly describe themselves as a lower tier DJ, did you find it difficult to get interest from people? Say, why do I want to read this?
Yeah, it was quite difficult. And, like I said, it is quite a niche subject. And I think that there's only so much the publisher can do, really, particularly a small publisher. And I think you do have to really utilise your social networks as an author, call in some favours, which I did. I hit some people up in the industry to get like a pre-review from them. Do you know what I mean? And a few people were super helpful with that. And just getting, 3 decent names to say, oh, yeah, this is shit hot. Do you know what I mean? That kind of really helps. It's not... I don't know, it's, like I say, it's only so much a publisher can do, really. You do just have to get out there and, as much as you can, do as much networking about it and getting people's faces online about it. I promoted it a lot online, do you know what I mean? And I made a point of trying to grow my social media, so I had new people to promote to. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's been quite helpful. And I don't really know how else you do it as a someone publishing quite a small book for a small publisher. Do you know what I mean? It's very much word of mouth, really. It's why when someone says something about it online, I don't think people realise the impact that kind of shit has. Do you know what I mean? It's literally the only way. I'm not going to take out an advert. Do you know what I mean? You're not going to see it on TV. The only way people are going to buy my book is if someone else says this is really good. Do you know what I mean? Simple as that, really.
And a hashtag. Well, let me just say hello very quickly to Ralph, to Pat. Thank you for being here. To Frederick, to Amy and Lee. Most of those names I just mentioned all have the book, or they are off to get the book at some point. Mr. Blackwack says he has made a point of sharing it on all of his networks. Word of mouth, it's the oldest promotion in the world, isn't it? And it's the best still, without a shadow of a doubt.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, obviously a multi-million-pound publishing campaign would be great as well. But yeah, if we haven't got that, then we'll go with word of mouth. You know what I mean?
Mr. Dean Smith, good evening, sir. How are you, my friend? He says great stuff. You obviously, we all look to our peers for approval. We look to our peers for words of positivity, don't we? So, and when that comes in, it can only be a good thing.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, that kind of stuff is really important. Bill Brewster wrote last night, "A DJ Saved My Life," along with Frank Tote, who often gets mentioned. Doesn't get mentioned when people mention that book. But Bill really liked the book and was really positive about it early on. And honestly, for me, that was just fantastic. You know what I mean? Personally, to have the person who wrote that really inspiring book that I've loved all these years, one of the first people to ever write a book about DJing and take it seriously. Do you know what I mean? To have that person then say that my book was really good, I was like, okay, I really felt like I'd kind of made it. But also that was superbly useful in terms of the people on our scene getting into the book. Do you know what I mean? Getting a name like that to back it. I had it as my pinned tweet, what he'd said for a while, bless him, which meant that every time someone replied to it, he got another message. It must have been quite irritating. I was rinsing it out, man. Do you know what I mean? Because you do what you've got to do. And yeah, that was super, super helpful, bless him. He's been very, very supportive.
Well, it was like back in the day, wasn't it? You walk into a record store and you see a new Strictly Rhythm record and you buy it, really. You know the quality is going to be there. So that those reviews and those accolades from these people that you trust, it's on a par with that, really. So talking about music, talking about records, you had I always want to say successful, and I say a semi-successful career as a producer.
It went okay. I had my moments.
Lost My Dog, a huge. I love that label. I used to support it a lot. I used to support a lot of your records on my show. I brought Pete the Feet, came and played at Vocal Booth a couple of times for us, as did Tom. So tell us how you got into the producing game then, really.
So I had been DJing since whenever it was, the late 80s, and it got to the late 90s. I didn't have any DJing work at all. I was working in an absolutely awful job I hated, really hated it. All I was doing was buying records, but I was quite bored of DJing. And I remember I would do stuff on 2 decks, but I started trying to mix in like a tape deck or something as well. And I just kind of reached that point where I was thinking about adding something else, like maybe mixing between 2 drum tracks and adding a sound effect or something. So I was kind of almost stumbling into the very first ideas of production, do you know what I mean? Thinking of breaking it down and adding more elements, that kind of thing. And then luckily at the end of, I think it was 98, 99, something like that, I was made redundant from this awful job that I hated. And they gave me a little redundancy payoff, and I just spent it on some studio gear, kitted out a little home studio, proper rickety, do you know what I mean? And I think within 3 or 4 months, I made some tunes and signed them to Stickman, the Canadian techno label. It just came together really quickly for me, really. I'm a phenomenally driven person. Like I make out like I'm all kind of nice and laid back, but the fact is I generally have one thing in my life, aside from eating and relationships, that I just devote everything to. It was the same with production. It's the same with writing now. It's the same with DJing as well. So when I went and started working as a producer, I went at it pretty hard, like, as many hours a day as I could, staying up really late, neglecting my social life, all that kind of stuff, just to keep churning it out, learning how to make tunes by myself in my little studio. And I was very, very prolific just turned out a lot of stuff. I had an analog studio, right? So I had an old analog desk with knobs and sliders. So I couldn't save anything. I couldn't say something and go back to it and work on something else. So I just had to finish stuff. Do you know what I mean? I had to finish tracks or I'd lose all my settings on the mixer, right? All the pannings and the effects ends and stuff. And just having that limitation really helped drive this, like I say, being very, very prolific, because I just had to finish stuff. Do you know what I mean? So in a very hard-working and overly obsessive way, I just dove straight into production. I found that I just absolutely loved it more than DJing, perhaps. I don't know if that's true. No, I loved it in the same way as DJing. It made me extraordinarily happy. And so I would, like I say, I was very, very prolific. And so I sold loads of stuff really early on, really easily. Just any time I'd made some stuff, I could just, my mate at the time, I mentioned in the book, started kind of managing me, and he would just send out my CDs to labels that we liked and they would sign it. And it just kind of just happened the way it does when you're young and confident. You don't know what the fuck you're doing. Do you know what I mean? Things just happen. I think if we'd planned it, it wouldn't have happened. Do you know what I mean? But instead, I would get really high over the weekend for 2 days and bang out a tune, and then he'd send it out and we'd get signed and send us a contract and we'd go, this seems to be working. We seem to be in the music industry. And it just sort of snowballed from there, really. And like you say, I did okay. You know, my production career, there's some things I'm really proud of in it, some things I'm less proud of, but I had some good moments. Was involved in some really decent labels. Some great people remixed me. I didn't like it when they made a better job of my tune, but then I really liked that remix.
That was quite funny.
It's a weird one, that, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? When that happens, like, what do you think? Oh, you've made my tune better, brilliant. But also, I really like your shit. Do you know what I mean? Proper duality stuff. And, you know, I did okay. I think if you look at, you can do Google Analytics and see when peak Harold Heath was, or peak anything. I think peak Harold Heath was around 2008, maybe 2007. I put an album out on Urban Talk that went quite well. Mm-hmm. It's bits, you know, that we used on TV and had some stuff on Radio 1. So, yeah, you know, on the surface, it's reasonably successful. But that was over a substantial period of time, do you know what I mean? And not ever enough. Never did it amount to a career, do you know what I mean? It was always nearly a career. But as I detail in the book, there were a series of Mac jobs that got me through many years, do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like in Wayne's World, let's just say I had a collection of hairnets and name badges, do you know what I mean? All sorts of fucking awful jobs, man. All manner.
All manner of jobs. Absolutely all manner of jobs. And then unfortunate timing, the arse fell out of it all, you know, so
my timing in the music industry was just exquisite, wasn't it? I mean, I started releasing vinyl in 2001. I think vinyl sales pretty much started dipping in 2001, and then obviously digital happened. But yeah, my timing was just perfect, man. Really bang on.
The timing as well that would get you your first international gig, that the time where you finally get to jump on a plane and you pinch yourself and you say, "What? How has this happened?" Fill us in about the emotions that go along with that, you know. And
a lot of people talk about imposter syndrome. I was
just about to say that. Fantastic.
You do sometimes, like, usually it's fine, right? But very occasionally, when I was playing, the few times I played abroad, I did it a few times over the years, I would kind of feel like occasionally some people they would act like I was really fucking important. Do you know what I mean? That used to freak me the fuck out. I wasn't very good at knowing how to respond to that. And people were really fawning, kind of thing. It didn't happen very often. But it's as though they expected you to act they expected you to expect them to act in a certain way. Do you know what I mean? I'm a pretty down-to-earth geezer. And also I was aware that I wasn't massively successful. I was also, you know, I was an all right DJ and producer and that. But often if you're getting flown to somewhere like Bulgaria, where I played a few times, you're going to be getting paid not, you know, a few sheets that in that country are worth a lot more than what they are to me. Do you know what I mean? There was a sense that you kind of arrived like the king. Do you know what I mean? And they put out the red carpet for you. And I always felt a bit strange about that. Felt quite an odd thing. You know, you've been there, right?
Yeah, totally. Again, that's why I completely related to the stories. Yeah. You're a very, you know, down to earth, humble guy. You kept your feet on the ground. You never allowed it to, you know, get to your head. And even though, you know, a few occasions, a few wild nights, to say the least.
It's the nature of the business, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? You had a few wild weekends, 3 days, 4 days. It's the nature of the thing, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. And so we got more people commenting here. Good evening, Chris. Nice to see you. And Ralph is asking, did you ever go to Dresden? I mean, you would have played enough to not be able to remember all of the gigs that you've done, right?
Yeah, I mean, I would know if I'd been to Dresden. I definitely never went to Dresden. I would know that. But yeah, a lot of them kind of fade into each other. When I was writing the book, I would speak to my mates who were there at the time at different occasions to try and get some information. No one fucking remembers anything. Do you know what I mean?
Well, that's how all of these talks really have come about. It's a very self-indulgent opportunity for me it started off a lot of Birmingham conversations, me trying to piece together, okay, so what actually did happen in 91? When did Money Pennies begin? When were we going there? So what happened in those times? And then as the stories expand, and it's very easy, the selective memory, how you can convince yourself you remember certain scenarios and you've got them completely wrong, as you say, and it gets frustrating when your friends don't remember as well. But
they all remember little snippets of different bits here and there, and you have to triangulate between them all to try and assemble some kind of idea of what actually happened. You know what I mean? And they all have their own little take on things, but all of us are suffering from the fact that, to be frank, certainly in the early 90s, we were really fucking high a lot of the time. Do you know what I mean? And trying to piece together dates and times and places. Good luck, man. Do you know what I mean? Forget about it. You know?
That's why all these books are so invaluable. You know, definitely so invaluable. Archiving all of these stories. Yeah. Any of your favourite moments in the book that you felt came out absolutely spot on when you look back on it and you think, you know what? Because what's the word? I'm going to complimented you on the flow of the book, because it does move around a fair bit, doesn't it? It's not a linear story that the times do chop and change. Did it take you a long time to piece that together?
I got the chop and changing thing from the guy who wrote The Wire, David Simon. He did this thing in a book called Homicide, where he did a really clever thing with time. He would go in and then come back out. And essentially, I nicked that from him for the first chunk of the book, the way it jumps between times. So thank you very much.
You begin at like a kid's rave. I haven't read the book for a while.
Intro, yeah. It goes from a kid's rave, and then it goes to a rave in the mid-2000s in Bulgaria. Then it goes to an awful... Don't want to give too much away.
No, you can. People
an awful pop R&B gig that I used to do in Covent Garden for students. But in answer to your question, there are a few bits that I really like. I really like the bit that I wrote about coming down in a European hotel. I think that captured a particular thing that a lot of us are familiar with. Having overindulged.
I mean, I did say that we don't want to give too much away, but come on, give us some of the juice. Let's whet the appetites. Come on, give us the anecdote.
Just that particular section, I was writing about what it's like, and many DJs have had this, when you've done your gig and you've way overindulged and you've got back to your hotel room and you're completely wired and you don't know what to do with yourself and there's nothing to do, nothing's open, so you're just in that European hotel room by yourself with the buzz and the hum and whatever else, your tinnitus starting to interfere with your sanity, reflecting back on, did I do okay? Was it all right? And, you know what I mean? Hearing the voices, all that kind of shit. That bit, I was really pleased with that. I think that was, I hadn't read anyone else write that particularly. You know, I was really pleased with how it turned out. Not one person's mentioned it, so who knows? Maybe I'm wrong. Do you know what I mean? Maybe it's not the best bit in the book at all. I like the funny stuff in the book. I think it's good. The jokes. Yeah.
It is good. Did you ever consider getting up on stage and doing things like that, you know?
Getting up on stage?
Yeah, doing stand-up.
Oh, fuck, no, not at all, man. I'm funny when I write stuff down, do you know what I mean? When I've got time to think about it. But I in real life, people are often disappointed when they meet me in real life because my book is really funny. And it's interesting and it's really rich and it's got a good flow to it. And you don't fucking get that when you speak to me in real life. Do you know what I mean?
Well, you come across great now. You've come across great.
The jabs have been kicking in. They're going to wear off sooner or later, aren't they? Do you know what I mean?
Well, when it wasn't long after the book had been released, I bought the book because clearly I wanted to read it, but I was at that point where it was a long slug actually starting. And I've mentioned Steve a couple of times. He came over and he said that the haystack, you're in my hut now bit still makes him laugh.
Excellent. Well, yeah, we won't give that bit away, but yeah, I'm still in touch with that guy. He's a very good friend of mine, the little guy who was in the haystack. Yeah, he's a very good old friend. I saw him just the other month. He's a very successful para-Olympian now.
Okay.
It's a little factoid for you.
So, you know, we're the book aside, let's come back to the music game, the state of the music business, you know, because what I wanted to do was paint a picture of how everybody else sees the life of a DJ. They believe it to be so fantastic. They believe it to be so glamorous. And you do a great job of painting the picture of the reality of what it really is to be that DJ, the loneliness. It's not all fantastic wages all of the time. And you don't get that a lot of times when you hear people doing interviews and they're promoting stuff, because they want to put across this persona of everything is great. I've got nothing to lose by telling everyone how shit it is at times, and neither have you.
I think it was DJ Heidi Lorden who said that the 2 hours that she plays, you get that for free. What you're paying her for is all the slog that got her there. You know what I mean? It's all the travel, it's all the searching through all the shit music to find the few beautiful pieces that are worth playing. It's all that stuff. It's working it out. Do you know what I mean? Practicing, getting really technically proficient. That's what you're paying for. The 2 hours where she plays, that's for free, man. Do you know what I mean? And yeah, I think that's a very wise thing that she has said there. And yeah, you're right. It's an industry of smoke and mirrors, isn't it? Of trickery, and we all buy into it a bit. I talk about it a lot in the book. But I mean, nightclubs themselves are literally smoke and mirrors, aren't they? Do you know what I mean? It is all about creating a kind of magical false land for a while. Do you know what I mean? With the crazy lights and it's dark. It's not real.
I'm chuckling thinking about some of the way that you describe those scenarios in the book. Yeah. The way that it comes across, it's so visual. The way that you write, you can picture it so very clearly. I'm not sure if it's because I've been there or if everyone has the same can envisage it the exact same way.
I think all of us in the scene have got a shared experience, haven't we, of certain things. Do you know what I mean? And of neon light and Rizzlers. Do you know what I mean? There's certain things that trigger for us, strobes and smoke machines. You know, we've got a shared culture and experience, haven't we? I think if you can tap into that, you just get loads of people going, oh, fuck yeah, no, that's right, yeah. You know?
Well, I was thinking earlier, I'm not one to try and be clever with, the comments that I make, but one of the reasons why I believe this book is so successful and so incredible. It's what I was thinking earlier. It's like the Peter Kay kind of scenario. His observational comedy is so spot on. He did so well out of it because everybody related to, you know, the scenes at the weddings of the kids sliding across the floor and things like that. Everybody related to that, and that's
why a universality to what he does. It's kind of a lot of people. Yeah,
you put it better than me. Thank you.
I know. I'm just trying to get to grips with it. I've never been much a fan of his stand-up. But I'm not offended. It's a lovely thing to say, man. I was just.
But you understand what I mean? But how people could you relate to something?
Thing, isn't it? It's our shared history. It's things we all took part in that all still mean a lot to us that maybe we've just forgotten about. And someone goes, "Everyone, kids used to slide across the floor." Weddings, you're like, "Oh fuck yeah!" I guess it is the same with my book. Really, I have a sense with my book. I'm lucky that I did it first, because I have a sense that there are a lot of people like me who've got that book in them. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That book that tells the tale of not quite making it, of it being quite a laugh on the way. I have a sense that I'm quite lucky that I was the one who nailed it first. Do you know what I mean? Because I think that, you know, like we say, it's not a universal story, but it's certainly a story familiar to many, many people, right?
Yes, so many people.
Yeah.
Absolutely, so many people. So your peak came, and then there was the demise. And you say in the book that the demise, if that's the right phrase, probably went on. It was drawn out longer than it should have been, right?
Yeah, and that was my initial theme of the book, was why on fucking God's earth did people like me carry on slogging away, turning out these little productions that were bought by 10 people and then trying to get gigs and playing to half empty rooms? Why are you doing this? Do you know what I mean? I was just fascinated by the fact that me, thousands of other people across the whole world, are just still keep doing it into their 40s. Do you know what I mean? They got wives, they got kids, they got proper jobs, still doing it. And that was, I think that's interesting. I thought it was an interesting thing to write about. I didn't quite realise quite what it was when I started, do you know what I mean? But it's just all about that passion, that love. That dance music gave us all so much more than we expected, I think.
So does that resolve itself in the book? Do you get the answer to the why? Can people find that out? Or when you look back, you think, but did I ever actually find the answer to that?
Yeah, I think it becomes abundantly clear with time. You can see a life spent doing what you love is a life well spent. Do you know what I mean? If you want to sum up my book, that's what my book is. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. And you do say you regret none of it. It was all.
Regret none of it. I wish I was more successful sometimes. I'd like to have been more successful, but I don't really know how I could have done it. I talk about that in the book as well.
Define success. Define success.
Well, here we are again. Do you know what I mean? I think we said this earlier, didn't we? Do you know what I mean? I would have liked to have earned more money from it and played better clubs. There you go. That's what I would have liked to do. But as I said in the book, you look back and think, well, actually, it was still terribly good fun. It gave me a lot. I'm still in that world and I still love it. So I'm good with it, really. And I also have worked out that in order for me to be more successful, I would kind of need to be someone else. I need to be someone who's much more approachable and easygoing and more outgoing and able to market myself and able to network. That's not me. That's not the kind of person I am. Do you know what I mean?
Well, how do you come to that conclusion?
Because I can look back on my career and think about all the times where I just fucked off after a night. So I couldn't be asked to talk to anyone when I should have hung around and had drinks until, until the afters or whatever. Do you know what I mean?
And how would that have affected your trajectory?
I think that a lot of the success at a certain level of DJing is about relationships. I think it's having a good relationship with people. People like to book you because you're going to be a wicked fucking laugh as well as a great DJ at a certain level in the pyramid. Do you know what I mean? I think that ability to network, to fit in with people, really strong, powerful tool if you've got it. Do you know what I mean? Any young DJs out there, if you've got that shit, then use it because there are loads of people like me who haven't got it. You could just burn us, man. Do you know what I mean?
So take us to we talked about the peak. There is a book where you say that you look around and I can't put my finger on where the venue was. Yeah. And you said this is quite possibly the ultimate. This is the moment. Yeah. This is the peak of your career. Just give us a few words about that. There are
two, really. There's a career peak that I write a whole chapter about. It's a beautiful gig that I played in 2006. But there's also the greatest gig I ever played, which is a slightly different gig in the book, right? But I guess, in professional terms, you have these gigs, very occasional gigs, I guess, where everything just goes so perfectly. And, from the moment you arrive, everything is just like you've dreamed of. Like, you have so many expectations before gigs, and quite often it just doesn't quite match up, and things aren't as good as you hope, and it isn't a great success. And I was always a terrible optimist, so terribly naive. I always had such high hopes every time I went out with my records. Do you know what I mean? Well, not this night. But, you have these occasional nights where it is just fucking perfect, man. Everything falls into place and the planets align. And every selection you make is just the right tune. And somehow your mixing is just perfect. The sound system is pristine. There's not even a rattle or anything. It's just someone's tuned it perfectly. And everyone's just on that right vibe at the right time. You have those moments occasionally. And I'm getting goosebumps now as I say it, so I'm thinking about those moments. That's what I lived for. I still kind of live for that kind of sensation, that euphoria from those. Oh, my days. Nothing like it, is there? Do you know what I mean? No. You know what I'm talking about. I can see it,
Exactly. Well, you say that about the optimism. I used to live, very brief story I've mentioned a few times on my radio show. I used to live in a high-rise block of flats in Birmingham next to the M6 motorway. If you've ever driven from down south along the M6 towards Spaghetti Junction, there's a huge building on the right-hand side called Fort Dunlop, just before you get to the Villa Ground. I lived in a high-rise block. The 19th floor, my decks were in the front window. And every time I was going through my records, preparing for my gigs, wherever it would be at the weekend, I'd be playing, DJing to the cars on the motorway, like, come on, breakdown would come in the tune, hands in the air, just picturing, you know, the elation of the crowd and everybody. And it very rarely happened.
Just dream of how good it can be. And that is what I think I was aspiring to, and a lot of DJs were aspiring to. It's, you see, you know, clubs that are rammed with people going crazy. You just want to be that person in charge of that party. You just, you know, that's what you want. You want to share this wonderful, you know, you found this. As a DJ, you think the stuff you've got is the best, right? You think the music you've got is the best. And as a DJ who's working, you've put together, you've got this box of records that you genuinely think is the best in the country. And all you want to do is share it. Do you know what I mean? You just want to share it with people. You just have this, I don't know where it comes from. It's, I feel like it's related to some kind of age-old instinctive urge that humans have to share and commune. I could be talking utter bollocks, but the urge to get out there and just let people, give people a taste of that experience you had when you first heard that record and it gave you goosebumps. You just want other people to have that. Do you know
That's
what I mean?
true. Well, there are studies and whatever that as soon as anything good happens to you, you'll always look around to try and tell. Did you see that? Did you?
Right.
It's not an insular thing. Always do it. That will lead us very perfectly onto a question that Pat Badeau has left for us. He says, how do you deal with the times you don't feel you played a good set, as it's not always the perfect gig? And you cover that in the book, you know, coming away, shaking your head.
You have to reflect on what you've done badly, make a list, really torture yourself with it until you're quite sort of upset. And then you'd need to take some stimulants so you can stay up for a long time and really revise just what a terrible person you are, right? And when you've got it down thoroughly and you can really articulate it, and you've got to go and join a fucking monastery and give it up for the rest of your life. That's how I generally coped with it. And then I would usually have a friend who would talk me down and go, do you know what, it's probably going to be all right. And then you live to fight another day.
There you go.
That's my answer. That's what I did. I would torture myself beyond belief when things didn't go well. I would just think it's the most terrible, terrible failure. Like if I would, you know, back in the day when we'd mix vinyl, if I dropped a mix, if it went out of time and it got a bit bumpy for a minute or two, 3 days later I'd be going, oh, that was terrible. And my mates are like, no one fucking cares. You know what I mean? This kind of, I had this I still do. Like I say, I'm quite an obsessive person. I have this over interest in the minute details of how these things went. So I think as I've got older, I've become a lot more cool about it. Do you know what I mean? And were I DJing this evening, and if the records went out of time, I'd be all right with it. Do you know what I mean? I think that would be okay now. I guess it comes with time and experience, and you know, it seemed very important back in the day that everything was perfect.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's less important.
Are you one of these? I say one of these guys. We're all one of those guys who a slight resentment at how easy technology has enabled people to jump into the scene.
No, I love digital DJing. I think it's absolutely brilliant. It's I love DJing on digital setups way more than vinyl. And I loved vinyl. Don't get me wrong, man. Vinyl's beautiful. I've still got a nice vinyl collection, but I cannot rate highly enough the ease with which you can do stuff digitally that used to be really hard with vinyl, right? You know, just like looping a little section or whatever. It used to be quite a big challenge when you were a vinyl DJ, right? You wouldn't always try those kind of things. Digital, just like that. I think it's like anything. You put that tool in the hands of a good DJ and they can just be better than they used to be when technology was more limited. So no, I'm not resentful about it at all, man. I think it's inevitable. You'll get, we've seen a growth of, you know, I'm going to call them shit DJs, and you know, because of the ease with which the technical aspects of, you know, it's become much easier to be able to do the technical aspects of DJing, right? But yeah, so what? There's always going to be shit people doing shit stuff, aren't there? Do you know what I mean? What can you do about it? You can't get rid of the technology. You can't criticise the technology, Andy. It's not the technology's fault. It's human beings' fault. Do you know what I mean? The technology is fucking dynamite. Give Derek Carter a digital setup and he will blow your fucking mind. Do you know what I mean? Simple as that, man. So what can you do? There's lots of shit DJs. That's tough.
That was a very good answer. That's a good answer. Shout out to Pogwash. Good evening, sir. He's coming in and saying hi. I think we have covered a lot of the crux of what your book is about. On reflection, was there anything that didn't make it into the book that you wish you had have included, or is there any scope for you to go back and delve deeper into certain parts of the career?
Well, the charts that I put in the book at the end of some of the chapters were hugely popular, way more popular than I thought, and I only put them in literally when the book was being proofread at the printers or whatever. I wish I put in some more of them because they went down really well, and I had loads more charts. I just hadn't had time to tie them together. So I'd like to have done that.
Where are the charts? I mean, like, it's been 18 months since I read this or so.
So at the end of several of the chapters, there's like a list of 20 of the tunes. So if you go to page, I can't read that, I'm too blind, I think it's 82, might be 92.
Oh yeah, of course. I see.
The list of tunes I was playing for each chapter, like, so there's some 90s house, there's some whatever. They were really popular, and I really like the fact that people have gone back and looked at those tunes. And I know that there's boxes of records that I've missed out that I really wish I'd put in because I hurried that part. So I wish I had. That's my only regret with it, really. I wish I hadn't hurried that section. There were some stories I didn't put in because they were a bit too dark. It was hard to. But the book has occasional flashes of darkness. There's a couple of instances, but I generally try to keep it light. So there's some stuff that I didn't put in to do with other people as well, not just me. That's just a bit on the dark side, man. Do you know what I mean? And
so without being
tell every tale that happened to you, do you? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So without being too specific, I would jump to the conclusion you're talking about maybe mental health issues along the way and things like this.
Yeah, stuff like that happened to me and other people. Some people had drug problems that became really not funny at all. I think there's humour in everything. I think a really good writer can write amusingly about pretty much any subject. I'm not sure I'm quite there yet, whether, there are some areas that I would be wary of trying to find the humour in. Do you know what I mean? I think you can do it if you're a good enough writer, and perhaps I'll return to... I think there's a lot of humour in tragedy. Do you know what I mean? Humour and tragedy are not that far away from each other. And I think Bill Brewster said to me that some of the best music books are the ones that don't deal with success. They're the ones that deal with a failure or with tragedy or just a failure to succeed. Do you know what I mean? No one wants to read about, Sonatas being really successful, having a great time. That's not where the good stories are. Do you know what I mean? That's not where the real meat is. The meat is down in the gutter. Do you know what I mean? Where I was. He talked about this book. I'm going to mention this book. Bill talked about this book. It's called Songs They Never Play on the Radio by James Young. It's one of my favourite ever music books. I absolutely love it. And it's a dark, dark tale, man. It's just the story of Nico, the singer from the Velvet Underground, when she had a heroin problem in the 80s, and she was in a band who all had drug problems, and they just staggered around Europe in terrible conditions, doing the most terrible gigs just to get some heroin. It's an utter tragedy of a book, and it's also incredibly funny and warm, and it's all those things. It's everything. It's humanity all wrapped up in one book. It's the dark and the light. Do you know what I mean? And it's a book about tragedy in the music industry, and it's fucking superb, man. And I think Bill's got a point. I think there's a lot to be said for tragedy, the success, the failure to succeed. Not necessarily being a failure, but failing to, do you know what I mean? That struggle. The struggle's interesting, I think. there's a lot in it.
Well, I think that will bring us back to the probably a deep question about why that happens. It's why the soap operas on the TVs, the darkest storylines always tend to be the ones that get the most viewers. Is it because it makes people feel better about their own shit lives when they're reading other people's?
Maybe you're right. I don't know, man. I think, there's a lot to be said for delving into that extreme stuff, I guess. Yeah.
Indeed. Well, listen, I feel that I've asked enough of you without giving too much away. I've really been reluctant to give away too much of this book because I am a huge fan, and I really cannot recommend it highly enough that people should read it. Also, your writing continues to be amazing. Have you? Are there places online where people can go and find all of your works, that you do, or is it just a case of following you on socials to see when things
There is
pop
a
up?
site where you can go and get all my work, but yeah, just follow me on the socials. I think all my socials have got a link to all my work. So yeah, Twitter is where I'm at mostly. Twitter's nice these days, isn't it? Mostly, apart from all the Nazis, obviously.
I don't actually. I've never really been a Twitter person.
There you go. Yeah, I like it. It's got little limitations, isn't it? I like the limitations of it. You've got to be good in a short amount of words. I like the brevity. It appeals to me.
Okay, yeah, I do. I recall people saying that it's.
But yeah, I'm on those socials. Get me on there. See my stuff. I'm always publishing stuff for talking about myself. So
incredible. Harold Heath, Long Relationships, my incredible journey from unknown DJ to small-time DJ. It will have you in absolute hysterics. Go and pick it up. And I even have my signed copy here, look. Man like Andy Ward. Yes.
Can I sign it? Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, and I've got my name in the book as a pre-order.
Yeah, you were an early adopter, weren't you?
Velocity Press, there you go, look. Velocity Press. Go and buy it. Shouts out to Colin and everybody there. Harold, thank you so much for your time, my friend. I hope that my shambolic interviewing technique has done your book proud. I've enjoyed getting to know you a little bit better, as if I didn't know you enough from these pages.
Well, thank you very much for having me. It's been really good fun to just sit and talk about myself. It's the one good thing about publishing a book is you get to talk about yourself a lot. Makes me want to write another one, really. It's been, your interviewing was, I would say, fair to good.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Wonderful. It was wonderful as anything else you do.
I can work on that. Thank you, my friend. Final shouts, final plugs. We did say before we started, was there something that you wanted to give a push to?
No, buy my book, Long Relationships, my incredible journey from unknown DJ to small-time DJ. I'm writing some more bits for lots of your favourite music magazines, and you can see them in the music magazines. I'm not very good at plugging my stuff, am I? Let's go with that.
Your plugging skills are fair to middling.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Oh, touche.
Dude, thank you, my friend. I'll say a few farewells to the people. Everyone's been loving it. Thank you, my man.
Thank you very much, man. It's been an absolute pleasure. Really lovely to talk to you.
We'll do it again. Well, I do this a lot, and it'll be good to have a few people on, and we can talk about the academic life and talk about why people need to be reading a lot more books. I really enjoyed the you saying about how difficult it is to get back into reading, but once you do that and you start exercising that brain again, it's good.
Yeah, we should start a book club.
There you go. That's a good idea. Shout out to the guys who I just joined their club, actually. What is that group that I recently joined?
Oh, thanks. What are they called? I think it's just called the Music Book Club, isn't it, or something like that?
Mm-hmm. You'll have to forgive me, guys. I can't remember, but I was invited to promote this. So any of the guys in that music book club, if anybody would like to come and promote their works, then they're more than welcome to come and be shambolically interviewed by me. Right, Harold, I'm going to say a few farewells. Thank you, my friend.
Cool, man. Nice one.
Take care. Bye. Okay, guys. So there you go. You're more than aware of my shambolic interviewing techniques. I've just put the zoom all over the front of the screen so I can't see what I'm doing. Let me read some of your comments. Pat, I'm glad you enjoyed that. Frankie Dread, what's happening, my man? If you haven't read the book, Frank, you would most definitely relate to a lot of this being backstage a lot. He shares so many great anecdotes. Mr. Foster, Ralph, Grant, still with us. I'm honoured, Grant. Yeah, I know him. Question myself. The problem is when I'm talking to people like Harold, who are used to interviewing people a hell of a lot, I do second guess myself. But the whole reason why I do this is because I enjoy it so much. I like it to be relaxed. I would love to sit here with a beer in my hand, but then I just end up going off on a tangent. So that's why I never have a drink when I do these conversations. And I shan't even waste my breath inviting you along, Grant. You know, it would mean the world to me, brother. Maybe one day I can get 20 minutes out of you. So thank you all for being here. If you look on the screen, you can see next Tuesday, I'm going to be talking to a gentleman by the name of Brock Albank. The topic of conversation is body positive. Now, Brock is somebody that I've known for a long time. He's a very good friend of mine. He's an absolutely hysterical character. I don't know how I'm going to get a word in. But he's going to be talking to us about his early days as a photographer for Mixmag. He's also going to be talking about other work. And then most recently, he has shot to fame in a series of exhibitions and works that he's been doing, focusing on mental awareness, mental health awareness, and body positivity. And by the time I come on air next week, I'll have all of the information on himself and his foundation. You can find him on Instagram. Some of the portraits that he's done over the last few years are breathtaking. And we're going to be talking to Brock next week. It's going to be hysterical. Emily, thank you for being here. Thank you again for anybody checking out the recording. I truly do appreciate it. On the screen, we see logos popping up from people who regularly support me as part of my Access program. I thank each and every one of those. And if you aren't a fan of the Inspire and Be Inspired page, then do find it on Facebook. You may be watching this on my own profile. If you are, then please try and find Inspire and Be Inspired by Andy Ward. Like the page, and you can also subscribe to me on YouTube. I am done. Thank you so much, everybody. Truly appreciate it. And again, thank you, Harold. I love that, and we'll get you on again. Right, where's my button? I'm out of here. You take care of yourselves. Bye.